This awkward teenager with dyslexia is about to discover that he is related to an ancient race of gods. A woman named Turid is driving into the town of Edda in Norway with her two sons, named Lauritz and Magna. The family left this town a long time ago, when Turid's husband died, and now they are returning because Turid has found a job here. On their way into the town, their path is blocked by an old man in an electric wheelchair. Sensing that he is struggling, Magna gets out of the car to help the old man. An old woman comes out of a nearby shop, and she seems pleased to see Magna. She tells him that he is a nice boy and touches him on the forehead. As she does, lightning can be seen in Magna's eyes. Magna sits back inside the car, and then he instinctively says that it's going to rain. Lauritz and Turid both say that there is not a single cloud in the sky, but just then, heavy rain starts pouring down on the car. They arrive at their grandmother's old house where they will be living, and Lauritz disapproves of the fact that they will be living next to drug dealers and other lower-class people. Next, the two brothers arrive at school and introduce themselves in class. During introductions, Magna reveals that he is dyslexic. The teacher tells Magna to sit next to a pretty girl named Gurai, whom Magna immediately likes, but Lauritz reaches her first, and Magna is forced to sit with Isolde, the school outcast. In class, they learn about the Norse religion and discuss that Edda was the last town to abandon the Norse gods and embrace Christianity. They also discuss that Ragnarok, the final battle between the Norse gods and the giants, took place in Edda. The gods died in that battle, but the fate of the giants remains unknown. During lunch, Magna sits down with Isolde, and she warns him that she is not very popular, so he shouldn't hang out with her, but he doesn't care about it. A handsome young man named Fjord Jutul arrives, and there is an argument between him and Isolde. Fjord's family owns the biggest industry in Edda, and Isolde, who is an environmentalist, believes them to be responsible for all of the pollution in the town. Isolde introduces Magna to the rest of the Jutul family, which includes Saxa, Fjord's sister, and Ran, their mother, who is the school principal. After school, Isolde finds that some bullies have bent the wheel of her bike. Magni arrives and bends the wheel back to normal with his bare hands. He is just as shocked as Isolde at what he has just done. He goes home and makes an audio note about it in his phone. The next day in class, Magna realizes his eyesight is better too, and he no longer needs glasses. Much to Magna's delight, he and Gry are placed in the same group for a class project, along with Isolde. Next, Magna and Turid are at a gas station when they run into Vidar, the father of the Jutul family. Vidar was a friend of Turid's when she last lived in Edda. Turid tells him that she is working in his company as an accountant. Vidar shakes Magna's hand, and suddenly his face becomes stern. The dog in his car also barks at Magni. Later, Vidar arrives home and tells Fjord and Saxa to keep an eye on Magni and learn as much as they can about him. Magni finds his grandmother's old tools and notices that there is a strange symbol painted on them. The next day, after school, Isolde invites Magna over for dinner at her place, and he is incredibly happy to finally have a friend. They go grocery shopping together, and at the shop, Magna meets the old woman and man that he met upon his arrival at Edda. They both simply tell him that it is good he is here, because he will be needed, especially around the spring equinox, when it gets dangerous up in the mountains. Magna does not understand what they mean at all. Magni arrives at Isolde's house and finds out that her dad is their history teacher, Eric. While having dinner, Isolde invites Magna to go up to the mountains with her. She says they'll paraglide down together, and Magna agrees. Then, Eric speaks about Isolde's environmental activism in a condescending manner, and she gets riled up. She blames the Jutuls for poisoning the town's water and says it was probably the poisoned water that killed her mother, too. At this, Eric gets upset and leaves. Later, Magna and Isolde are chatting when Isolde's secret diary falls open, and Magna learns that she is secretly in love with Saxa. She makes him promise not to tell anyone, and he agrees. The next day, after school, Magna arrives home to find Turid working with a hammer, and he notices the same symbol on the hammer which he saw earlier on the other tools. The next day, Isolde and Magna hike up to the mountains. Isolde gets tired from the hike, but it hardly takes a toll on Magna at all. They come across a sign which tells them not to go forward, but Isolde says that the Utuls just hang these to remind people that they own the mountain. As they jump over the sign, Magna gets a text from Loritz saying their mother is sick. Magna says he has to go back, and Isolde says it's okay. She'll paraglide down by herself. Magni runs down the mountain, and at the same time, Vidar is driving up it. Vidar reaches the top of the mountain and begins undressing. He takes off all of his clothes and sets his sights on some deer. He jumps on top of one deer, snaps its neck, and rips its heart out with his bare hands. He climbs a cliff, eats the heart, and roars over the entire valley down below. Meanwhile, Isolde discovers a cave in the ice on top of the mountain, and inside, she finds a locked gate which says, "Property of Jutul Industries." She records everything on her phone. Magne arrives home and finds that Turid is fine, and the text was just a prank by Loritz. He goes outside and sees that Isolde is paragliding down from the mountains. He realizes that she is heading towards power lines, and for some reason, not changing her course. She hits the power lines and gets electrocuted. Magni rushes toward her and arrives to find her lifeless body. Just then, Vidar arrives and asks Magni what happened. He tries giving CPR to Isolde, but she is long gone. Magna is inconsolable. That night, rain is pouring down, as a distraught Magni arrives home and finds his grandmother's hammer lying outside. In a fit of rage, he grabs the hammer and throws it. The hammer goes flying incredibly far, and as it does, lightning and thunder go off all over the sky. The next day, Magna arrives at school and finds a memorial set up for Isolde on her seat, which is next to his. Ran arrives and says that Eric will not be taking his class for obvious reasons. But just then, Eric enters and says he couldn't bear staying at his home alone. Ran says that their spring dance will be canceled in these tragic times, but Eric says that they should go on with it, because that's what Isolde would have wanted. A police officer announces that Isolde's death has been concluded to be a tragic accident. She says that Isolde was struck by lightning because she was gliding during a thunderstorm, which made her lose consciousness and hit the power lines. Magne argues that the thunderstorm started hours after Isolde's death, but the police officer says the case has been closed. Next, Vidar arrives at work and tells Turid that somebody has broken his car's windshield with a hammer. He tells her to take care of the details with the insurance company, emailing her the pictures. She notices the symbol on the hammer and realizes it's hers. She arrives home and asks Magna why he broke Vidar's car, but he doesn't understand how this is possible. He tells her he didn't do it, but she doesn't believe him. Perplexed, Magna checks the distance between his house and the Jutul residence and finds that it's almost 1,500 meters. After school, Magna takes another hammer and casually throws it across the football field. He is shocked at his own power. He measures the distance and finds that he threw it 541 meters away. Ran arrives home, and she and Vidar discuss how human are fragile and weak. Vidar admits that he is the one who actually killed Isolde, because she saw their tunnel in the mountains. Ran is not happy, but she says the police have closed the case, so they will be fine. However, she adds that Isolde's phone is still missing, so they must find it. The next day, at school, Garai tells Magna that she will come over to his place to work on their group project. Magna is beyond excited and nervously prepares for her arrival at home. Garai arrives, and they work in Magna's room. She tries to get to know him, but he is awkward and messes the whole thing up. Next, the night of the spring dance arrives. Loritz arrives to the dance really well dressed, and everyone is impressed, including Saxa. Magna comes to the dance too. He sits next to Grai and makes awkward small talk, and then Fjord arrives and takes her away to dance. Watching them dance, Magna is enraged, and he shatters a soda bottle with his bare hands. He leaves the dance, and as he is leaving, he spots Ran getting very handsy with some senior boys in an empty room. Fjord puts on a special song, and he and Saxa perform a very creepy dance. Loritz, who seems to get their vibe, joins them. They're both impressed by him. Meanwhile, Ran has sex with the senior boys in the other room. Magni arrives at Eric's house and says that Isolde's death was not an accident and that the police are not taking it seriously at all. Eric tells him to respect Isolde's memory and leave the matter alone. Enraged, Magna goes outside and pushes an entire car with his brute strength. Both men are equally shocked by this feat. Fjord, Loritz, and a friend of theirs arrive at Isolde's memorial, and as a joke, Fior urinates on it. His friend takes a picture of him doing it and uploads it. An angry Fior punches him and makes him delete the picture. Eric and Magna go through Isolde's stuff, and Magna throws her diary in the trash, saying that she should have the right to keep her secrets safe. He cries, and Eric comforts him. Ran, who took a screenshot of Fior's picture before it was deleted, shows it to Vidar. Meanwhile, Gry and Saxa have a sleepover, where Saxa tries to get information on Magna from Gryfjord arrives home, and Vidar grills him for what he did. He says that acts like these can ruin their reputation in a town which they rule. He begins beating Fior up. Gry gets up to go to the bathroom and catches a glimpse of the scene. She is shocked. The next morning, the entire town arrives to Isolde's funeral. After the funeral, Magna, Loritz, and Turid arrive home to find out that they've been robbed. The next day, Loritz and Magna interrogate the drug dealer that lives next to them because they suspect that he robbed them. The dealer says that he did go in the house, but when he arrived, the door was already open, and there was a black car parked outside with a dog in it. Magna speaks to the school therapist and tells him that the police don't seem concerned about Isolde's death or their house being robbed, so he will take matters in his own hands. He admits that he suspects Vidar to be involved in the robbery at their house. Afterward, the therapist breaks his confidentiality ethic and relays this information to Ran. Next, Eric arrives at Magna's house and gives him Isolde's old laptop. In the laptop, Magna finds proof that Jutul Industries are polluting the water in Edda. Vidar arrives home, and Ron scolds him for recklessly searching Magna's home for Isolde's phone. She tells him that he was seen by the drug dealer, and Magna suspects him too, which is too much attention being drawn to them. Magna bothers the police about Isolde's death again, saying their explanations make no sense. The officer replies that accidents and unexplainable things happen all the time. She says that according to Magna's report, he ran from the top of the mountain to his home in 30 minutes that day, which is a distance that would normally take more than 90 minutes to cover. That is unexplainable too. Magna arrives at the school track and makes a 100-meter dash while timing himself. He finds that he can complete the 100-meter track in mere 7 seconds, which is even faster than the world record. Meanwhile, at the hospital, a nurse tells Eric that they still have Isolde's clothes from the day she died, and he can have them if he wants. Vidar follows Magna walking around town, and he witnesses as Magna tries to cross the road without looking and gets run over by a snowplow. Pleased at the sight, he leaves. The old man and woman from earlier also see the accident, but they just smile at it. Vidar arrives home and triumphantly announces that Magna is dead, and all their problems are behind them. The Jutul family agrees that between murdering Isolde, urinating on memorials, and having sex with high school seniors, they have drawn too much attention to themselves, and they need to tone it down. At the hospital, the doctor is in shock, because despite being completely run over by a snowplow, Magna does not have a single broken bone or a bruise on his body. He is discharged, and as he is leaving the hospital, the dead body of the drug dealer arrives. With Eric's permission, Magna has taken Isolde's clothes from the hospital. He realizes that along with his sight, his smell, and all his other senses have sharpened as well. He smells something strange with Isolde's clothes. The next day, Saxa arrives in class, and she is shocked and a little scared to see Magna sitting there, complete unscathed. After class, Magna and Gry are working in Magna's room when he shares what he's discovered in Isolde's clothes with her. He says that the two bloodstains in the front and the back of the jacket smell different. They are different people's blood. Gry can't smell the difference and asks Magna why he's so obsessed with this. He says that Isolde was his only friend. Gry says that she is Magna's friend too. He doesn't react to this. Gry arrives home and finds out that her father, who is very sick, will not get money from the insurance company for his treatment. She hugs him and cries. The Jutuls are perplexed and frustrated by the fact that Magna came out of a fatal accident without a scratch. They invite him and Loritz over for dinner to truly find out what is going on. The brothers arrive at the Jutuls' mansion, and they are treated to a very fancy dinner and lots of alcohol. However, despite drinking a lot, Magna does not seem to get drunk. Vidar offers Magni a special drink. He says it's the drink that the gods and the giants drank. It's mead. Magni immediately loves it and asks for more. After drinking the mead, Magni gets very drunk and starts behaving wildly. He throws an axe and splits the target wood in half. Intoxicated, he reveals to Ran that he's recently discovered he has super strength. Ran playfully asks him just how strong is he. Next, Magni and Ran sit down for an arm wrestling match. Magni is confident he'll crush her and warns her that he doesn't care that she's the head mistress. However, when the match starts, he is shocked by how strong she is. She gives him a smug look, but as the match goes on, she starts getting equally surprised by his strength. Shocked, she asks him who he is, and he throws the question back at her. Suddenly, he looks up and sees Ron's true form. The surprise causes him to lose the match, as Ran slams his arm so hard that the table splits in half. Panicking over what he has just seen, Magna enters the bathroom and washes his eyes. However, when he looks up into the mirror, he sees his own true form, an ancient Viking-esque warrior. The end. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like our channel and subscribe if you enjoy content like this. Also, let us know what movie you would love us to recap for you.